No, Little Lord Fauntleroy was not about wizards and witches. However, in the 1880s, it pioneered a phenomenon that few books had managed to achieve. Children began to dress in a similar style to the main character. People copied the haircut. Stage shows were selling out. The book was translated into 12 languages. And Frances Hodgson Burnett made herself a fortune off the back of this fandom. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Sarah Kwan. Very excited to dive into today's topic, one of the first fandoms in the literary world. If you haven't already, please check out my last video. I did a character analysis for Lord Craven from The Secret Garden. And in today's video, I'm actually going to do more of a contextual analysis, talking about the cultural phenomenon that the world experienced at the release of the smash hit Little Lord Fauntleroy. And I do this with the promise that I can help you with your English homework. So if you want to get better at writing your papers, if you want to get better at reading, follow along. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let's continue into Frances Hodgson Burnett month. So while I think The Secret Garden has become the longevity classic for Frances Hodgson Burnett today, in her lifetime, this smash hit was Little Lord Fauntleroy, the charming tale about young Cedric, who lives with his widowed mother, and how his paternal grandfather, the Earl of Dorincourt, is basically forced to make Cedric his heir, and he does so on the condition that he will have nothing to do with his Cedric's mother, since she's American, and well, I can't really blame him. Bloody Americans. And not really understanding that part, Cedric begins his new life in the UK with his grandfather, and he sees only the good in the old Earl. When he witnesses the impoverished conditions of his tenants, Cedric sets out to right the wrongs, and he does so with the most generous attitude toward his grandfather. He believes that his grandfather just didn't know about these injustices, and of course he's going to help. Of course, over time, this helps soften the Earl, and along with some other circumstances, he comes around to Cedric's mother, and they all live happily ever after. It's a beautiful tale, and it plays on themes that were extremely relevant at the time. Not only did people love a rags to riches story, it also utilizes the relations between the US and the UK. And of course, they were somewhat hostile. I mean, this is only 100 years after the Revolutionary War, and even shorter, the Civil War just happened. There was still lingering cultural tensions across the pond. And we do still have that to a degree today. There's still this idea that, there's a bit of a rivalry between the US and the UK. And, Americans, they're all loud, proud, and uncouth. And the English are stuffy, crown-worshipping toffs. Sorry, everyone. But in the book, the Earl of Dorincourt, despite his trepidations about having anything to do with Americans, he couldn't stand that his son married an American woman. He really has this prejudice, but he sees the goodness in Cedric's heart and the change that he makes in his tenants' lives. He sees his wit and his intelligence, and he begins to realize that he was wrong. Clearly, this boy has been brought up well by his American mother. And therefore, his rigid prejudices begin to dissipate and give way to love. Now, this idea really added to the cultural phenomenon here. The story gave the readers a chance to experience the full process. The Earl has his prejudices, and then he meets and learns to love an American. He sees that the American warmth and innocence could somehow help heal the rigid British systems that are somewhat broken and instead make them brand new. Now, it wasn't just about political and social concepts. Little Lord Fauntleroy came with a full-on fashion craze and merch. Cedric is described in the book as wearing these little velvet suits with lace collars, and he has a curly page boy haircut. This look soon became a fashion trend. Shops started selling Little Lord Fauntleroy suits, and mothers were dressing up their boys in this style and also giving them the page boy bob. Now, furthermore, there was an even wider change in fashion trends started by Little Lord Fauntleroy. So in the past, young boys would be dressed actually in gowns until maybe 3 or 4. So the girls and boys would both wear, dresses. And this was just the way. I'm sure you've seen it in old photos where the babies wear, it kind of looks like christening dress. But because of the Little Lord Fauntleroy trend, mothers started putting their boys in pants a lot earlier. And this contributed to the end of putting little boys in gowns. So tell that to your conservative uncle next Christmas dinner when he says that boys can't wear dresses. It used to be the norm. With those Little Lord Fauntleroy suits, shops would sell bundles of merch such as, Little Lord Fauntleroy chocolates, Little Lord Fauntleroy playing cards, which are also featured in the story. The book was adapted into a stage play, and to cut a very long story short, it led to a copyright lawsuit won by Francis Hodgson Burnett, which set a precedent in copyright law that is still used today. So as you can see, this simple children's tale did more than serve as a bedtime story or a way to pass the time. It was a cultural phenomenon, a smash hit, and it had implications both in the attitudes of the people and even in the laws of the court. So now by this point, I think you can see the parallels with Harry Potter. I was maybe in year 5 or 6 when the first Harry Potter book came out. Our teacher read us the first book aloud in class. We were all spellbound. I was there for the Harry Potter craze, as I'm sure many of you were. I remember lining up for book releases, going to midnight showings, seeing everyone dressed up and, getting sorted into your houses. It's a shame that all that had to end in a rather unsavory type of court case. But I digress. When we analyze a book, when we write a book report, things like that, there are various ways to go about it. And of course, you need to read the rubric and see what your teacher wants. But one of the ways that we can analyze a book is by looking at the context, the cultural context. When did this come out? What was happening in the world? And what is reflected in the book? And how did it affect its release, its reception? Who wrote it? What were they going through? So always think about the context and how you can weave that in and out of your analysis. So I hope you got some tips from that. Tell me what you think. Did you know that Little Lord Fauntleroy was such a cultural wave? Have you heard this before? Do you think any of it remains today? Have you even heard of Little Lord Fauntleroy? As I said, I think that The Secret Garden has had the longevity, and maybe a Little Princess as well. But once again, in her lifetime, Little Lord Fauntleroy was the smash hit. And yeah, tell me, were you there for the Harry Potter craze? What memories do you have of that? Let me know in the comments. And just so you guys know, I am slowly trying to upgrade my equipment, my background, all that stuff. But it costs money. So if you want to be a handy helper and contribute to me getting a pretty little background and not sitting on a yoga ball, please buy me a coffee. There's a link right here in the description box. And please like, comment, subscribe, follow along. And I can't wait to see you on the next video. Bye.